Committee meeting of the City of Lloydminster for Monday, April 19th, 2021 to order at this time. At this time, we'll take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or a pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. This meeting is for discussion and information gathering only. All decisions will occur during regular council meetings. We thank all of our presenters at this time for being present. I will now call for direction from council regarding the agenda that has been provided.
Sorry, Councillor, your worship, I was just going to declare for 5.6, even though it is only for information gathering, I'm still going to declare for 5.6, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. All right. I will go back to item number 2, the approval of the agenda. I see Councillor Whiting.
I move that the agenda dated April 19th, 2021 be approved.
Councillor Marin, is that a second? Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the agenda presented? Not seeing any, I'll ask you to raise your hand in favor.
Thank you, Council.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, the approval of the previous meeting minutes. I'll look for council's recommendation. Councillor Whiting.
I move that the Governance and Priorities Committee meetings dated March 15th, 2021 be approved.
Thank you very much. I'll look for a seconder from council. Councillor Marin, thank you very much. Any further discussion on those minutes presented? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, public presentations. 4.1, resident request refinance charges. I'll look to the city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have a presenter. Hopefully I pronounce his name correct, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's Samek Rahim, and he will be presenting on requesting his charges be waived by City Council.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. Mr. Raminen, welcome to our meeting. The floor is yours for the next 5 minutes, sir, to make a presentation. I will ask you to remain on the line. If there's questions, I will have council to direct them through me to you and ask for your reply to those questions. Oh, he's still connecting to audio. You're not connected yet, sir. Oh.
If as a way of a suggestion, I could offer Mr. Hameen, in the bottom right corner or bottom left corner of it is your audio. Just click on that and use your computer audio, and that should allow you to connect your system. He's on an iPhone. That could be an issue as well. Your Worship, if we can't get Mr. Hameen connected, we have another individual waiting in the lobby to do a public presentation. Perhaps we can work through the sound issue with Mr. Hameen in
Absolutely. So what we'll do is we'll come back to 4.1. I see him back on the screen. Let's just see if he can connect his audio. And there you are. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you? Sorry about that. It's
Not
my
a
first
problem.
time with the Zoom.
No, I totally understand. Welcome to our meeting, sir. We just lost you again there. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, we've lost. Oh, yes, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm not sure if you heard my opening comments. You have 5 minutes, sir, to make your opening statement. I would ask you to stay on the line and stay with us if there's any questions from council. And at that time, they will come back through myself as the chair, and I will ask for your replies to those questions if there are any.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir, you have the floor. Please go ahead.
My name is Sia Rahmania. I'm the owner of 4602 44th Street, Lloydminster. I was asking to forfeit the interest charges on the bill that I received from the fire department for the 3 days of standby for the police work that was done on the house for the fire trucks and 2 fire chiefs, I guess 3 of them, for $22,500. Thank God I had insurance. I called my insurance company and had a coverage. I had to pay $2,500 deductible plus the GST, become $3,612.50. And the balance, except the interest, was paid by the insurance company. The insurance company is not accepting the interest charges, and I have lost quite a bit of matter in this situation. And because of COVID, I couldn't get rid of the tenant, and the matter got escalated. And so I have lost quite a bit of money in this matter. And this $755.07 interest charges during this COVID time, I think is not fair for me. And I'm asking the council if it's possible, because I went to the fire department and I've been going to the city to find out finally that I have to come to you guys. And that's what I'm asking, if you can forfeit this interest charges on this matter that we already paid $23,000 to the city for the standby work of the fire department.
Thank you, sir. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. I'll look to questions from council. Councilor Torreson.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I'm just curious, roughly what was the situation, I guess. Like, I understand that there was some kind of charge by the fire department and that they charged you money and it was able to be covered by insurance, but what was the service that they were providing you?
First of all, I thought I was covered because I pay property taxes and the fire department is covered. But this was a police matter that they arrested my tenant for the drug charges. And so I guess they had to do a forensic fingerprinting and going into the house and come back. I guess the procedure is they have to have a fire department standby in case of something happens, which reality, everything was off, all the gas, electricity, everything was off. But I don't know the system. And thank God I had the insurance, because the bill, if they would have stayed a couple of more days, they would have owned the house. $23,000 unexpected without any warning, and then interest charges on top of it. I think it was a little bit too much. That's all they did. They stand by. They just 3 days until the police take all the fingerprints and everything.
Okay, just one more. When you received the bill, did it have payment terms associated with it? Like saying bill is due within X amount of days, and then how did that compare to what it took to get your insurance?
It's what you call the regular bills that it comes with the amount, and there is no written of any interest charges on the first bill. But on this next month after, I got a bill with a $350 interest, which I sent it to the insurance company. Then second one, extra $350 becomes $700. And then I sent that one to the insurance company. At that time, December 12, I believe, they paid the bills without the interest and without my deductible. So I paid the deductible and the GST, which again, I have a problem with that because it's a rental. I cannot collect it, but since it's on a company name, I have a GST number. They didn't give me the GST. So I got, again, another $1,112.50 GST that I paid that I cannot return it back from the government. So I'm getting hit from everywhere. And I tried to kick this tenant out. It was a long-term tenant, but they had a divorce. After a divorce, couple of months, the house went crazy. I tried to evict them because of COVID. They did not accept my application. Then this matter happens. Didn't collect no rent for 8-9 months. Still the house is locked up. And I have a problem of people are breaking in constantly. So I constantly changing the locks, put in there. So it's quite a trouble house. Hopefully I'm going to sell it soon because it's just getting too much for me.
Okay, just so that I'm clear on it. So your incident happened sometime in August, and then
Yes.
the bill was all cleared up by December.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? City Clerk, I believe you have your hand up.
Yes, Your Worship, just to clarify a couple items that Mr. Hameen had mentioned. He had mentioned that he didn't think he would be charged for fire services for this type of service, just so the public's aware. Our fire department provides free services that are covered by your taxpayer dollars for a fire in your residence. This was not a fire in a residence. This was, just to be clear, a clandestine illicit lab that the RCMP had to shut down. There was numerous chemicals in the building, and that's why it required the fire services to be on scene for that length of time, and the RCMP to be on that scene for that length of time.
Yeah, I understand that. It's the procedures, and didn't argue with that things. It's just the interest charges that got accumulated, and I thought was the insurance company would cover it. The insurance company's policy says we don't cover the interest, and I'm stuck again like the GST, the same thing, and this is another bill on top of it. So that's what I'm asking the council. Please help me out to at least reduce a little bit of the cost for me.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, Councillor Marin?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm just curious, could you tell me what was the delay in paying the bill? So when you received it, you sent it to insurance. Did they indicate why there was a delay in payment?
I guess they have to do the paperwork and these things, and every time I send the invoice, I ask them what's going to is on the process.
So under process, but they wouldn't cover the interest, the late charges.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is more likely for the city clerk, but when would this item just come to city council for a decision? We can't make a decision on this today because of the type of meeting that this is. But when is this expected to come to us for a decision?
Council has several choices here today. Council can say that they'd like it brought forward to a council meeting for decision, or they can say that they're satisfied with administration's actions on this and not bring it forward to the meeting. Either one would be acceptable. Council's not making a decision on the item other than they're choosing not to hear it at a council meeting and agreeing with administration's processes at this time. Or bring it forward to council meeting to have administration present exactly what their reasons or their stances on the matter, and then council could make a decision at that time. We would bring it forward to the next available council meeting.
Okay.
Any Councillor Diachuk, and then I got Councillor Whiting. Councillor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess I'm just wondering, is there any other information sort of that you could add to this, either to Mr. Ramin or else our executive director, Doug?
No, there was a procedure happened, and the insurance covers it. I had to pay the $2,500 deductible and the GST, and I'm just asking the council for forfeiting the interest charges.
So I guess another question for you then is that I guess I'm trying to sort through when you received the notice to pay and then there was interest charges on that bill. And you sent it to the insurance, did they let you know in the first instance that the interest on it was not supported by insurance, or when did you find out?
The question never arises. They never said that at that time that they are not going to cover the interest charges because the application is on the process. I guess they have a process to say everything is okay, your insurance is covered, all these things that they got to go through. The matter came when I went to pay my deductible and the GST, which there was an interest charges notices by me that not paid by the company. So I called them. They says you're got to pay the interest charges. They says the interest charges is not covered.
Did you when you received your first bill, did you let the city know what was going on and that it was delayed because of insurance?
Yes. I went to the city to find out what is this bill is all about. They said they don't know. Then I went to the fire department, asking what is this bill is, and they says it's a matter of that we have to be there, and we did all other things that this fire department work. And they says you should be covered by your insurance company. So I called my insurance company, and they says yes, you have a $50,000 insurance coverage for the fire. And so I sent the bill to them, and after the matter was solved, and then these interest charges came.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Whiting, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Definitely an unfortunate situation, and unfortunately for me, I'm not one to just waive fees for the sake of waiving fees when they're fair for everybody. You know, that gets an invoice such as this, or many other invoices, to be honest, that have interest accrued on them. The only thing that I would ask if this comes back is that you provide something from your insurance company that says that either a reasoning why they're not including the insurance or the interest, or something that states it, and just to put the on just to justify that the onus is or that it's coming from the insurance company. This is something that they don't deal with, and because I don't know when the invoices were submitted to insurance company, I don't know the communication between you and your insurance company. So I get it. It sucks. It's probably wasn't tied off and as soon as possible. I know dealing with insurance, they're often slow to pay as well too, but the onus is on the insurance company, I think, to pay bills in its full. So I guess that's my comments on this.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just think at the end of the day, I think that this one is worthy of coming back to council, at least for more of a debate. We only do information gathering at this type of meeting, but I'd like to provide some opinion on it in general. But I think what's important for me in terms of my decision making is getting a copy of the actual invoice received by Mr. Romanian, as well as the subsequent ones in terms of how we make our decisions. Because whether or not there was reflection that there would be interest charged on that initial invoice, and then whether there was, and then the subsequent interest charges, and whether there was any communication between Mr. Romanian after that point with the city. And I think all those things are relevant. Just generally, a $23,000 bill that's totally unexpected in circumstances like this, I just think it's worthy of having a conversation as council. It's not a service that is expected or normally expected for an individual to have. And I understand if the insurance company wouldn't cover the insurance. I just think it's worth having the conversation. As far as your GST goes, though, I do believe you should be able to claim your GST to the CRA. There should be no issue there. You're not out that money. Talk to your accountant.
It's just because it's a rental and we don't collect GST on a rental, so therefore we cannot collect the expenses with the GST on that property. That's the things the accountant told me. But it's all government rules.
Yeah.
But I'm asking for compassion of the council, and your points of view of this quite right. And we are in the motel business. We are in this city for 25 years. And with this COVID, our businesses are practically it's been zero. And we need this compassion to at least help us a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Romanian. I think the city clerk had a comment.
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment, Your Worship. It appears the council has varying points of view on this, unless they could unanimously agree not to send it forward. I would agree with Councillor Torson that we can bring this back to the next meeting, and council can be presented with the items that they wish to be presented with, and then make an informed decision through the record.
Thank you, city clerk. Any further questions for Mr. Romanian? Councillor Diachuk.
I will bring all the invoices and the letter from the insurance company as soon as they can provide me with that letter.
Thank you, Mr. Romanian. Councillor Diachuk, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just thinking that if I was late paying my taxes, but set up a plan to pay it over 3 months, would I pay interest on that, on those taxes, even though I'm making late payment? And so I guess, I'm just trying to see whether our processes are in alignment here. So if he's come in and said, I'm waiting for insurance to pay for it, and it's not within his control, then how do we, I guess, exhibit the same sort of processing in that context as we would as if I was late paying my taxes or wanted to stagger my payments over 3 months or whatever it is too. So I guess that's kind of the thinking I had in my mind. And that's why I think when the question was asked, who knew what, when, and I think that obviously the information that will come to the next meeting will be important in filling the blanks in.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think that that question being asked as it's been, and a comment from the city clerk, I think there's some questions and answers that hopefully can be presented to council at that point for discussion in a council meeting where it can be fully debated and discussed. Is there any more questions for Mr. Romanian? Mr. Romanian, thank you very much for your presentation, and this will be addressed at the next available council meeting that the information is made available.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate all your help.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Moving on to item number 4.2, we have one further public presentation, and I'll let the city clerk via the city manager to go forward.
I'll let the city manager introduce this item if he's going to. His.
Okay. Sounds good. For 4.2, Lloydminster Citizens on Patrol, Mr. Donald Larry is here to present.
Good afternoon, Mr. Larry. I see you're there. You're muted at the current time.
How is that?
That's perfect, Mr. Larry. Welcome. Mr. Larry, you have 5 minutes to present to council, and I would ask that you would remain with us to answer any questions that may be presented to council at that after your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, and members of City Council. I will keep it brief. My name is Donald Larry, and I'm here today representing the Lloydminster Citizens on Patrol Society. We are a group of citizens in Lloydminster volunteering our time to assist the RCMP and our community in the detection and deterrence of criminal activity in their city. Our group is made up entirely of volunteers that receive no compensation for their efforts other than the satisfaction of doing their part in making a community a safer place. We have 3 marked vehicles that we use to patrol the city, usually late at night, looking for unusual activity and suspicious behavior. We work closely with the RCMP in reporting any activity and helping them in deterring crime. We also provide safe rides home for weddings, Christmas parties, and other such events, which is also a big fundraiser for us in receiving donations for our service. We have assisted in such community events as the traffic control for Canada Day fireworks, security for the hockey day that the city hosted a few years back, and at a parade of lights and other such activities. Due to the COVID situation, we have not been able to fundraise this past year and have run a deficit of $4,000. Our expenses include the licensing and registration of our 3 vehicles, the maintenance and repair of said vehicles, and accounting and legal costs. So in closing, I'm before you today to ask you to consider an annual donation of $5,000 to cover our most basic needs so that we may continue to provide the service to the city and its citizens. At a minimum, we would like you to consider a donation of $5,000 just to cover our operating losses this year due to the inability to fundraise due to this COVID environment. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you today. I'm ready to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. I will inquire with council and go from there. I have Councillor Torreson first.
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for your presentation. Just one question I had is, are you looking for annual donations as in annual every year from now on type of thing? When you say annual?
Yes, that would be ideal. A small donation of $5,000 to cover our most basic needs. And then we don't have to do so much fundraising. We can do more service. But in our current situation, we do have a deficit that I'm trying to address.
Okay.
I've got Councillor Diachak. Go ahead, Councillor Diachak.
Thanks, Your Worship, but it's more a question, I guess, to our city clerk or perhaps manager. When this letter showed up, I guess one of the things that came to mind is the money that we've collected through our tobacco tax, and we've indicated that we provide assistive technology to RCMP and other programs. I'm just wondering how that definition might apply in this context here. Certainly the individuals are providing a level of support, and that might be a place that we could consider looking at accessing dollars.
City clerk or city manager, whoever wishes to answer that one.
I would have to look at both policies to see the strictest part of the definition to make sure that it would apply. I can't answer that right now, though.
I've got Councillor Torreson again.
No, I understand what Councillor Diachuk's getting at. I think that more appropriately, if you would look at photo radar funds, because we say that photo radar funds are meant to enhance the safety of our community. And I think the fit is there potentially, whether we consider to do that or not.
So if I may interject, I've just been given the answer. Photo radar funds could be used as a community safety initiative.
Thank you, City Clerk. All right, is there any other questions for Mr. Larry at this time? Councillor Torreson.
Just more generally, is there anything that's been tried in terms of fundraisers that have failed, that haven't got any kind of donations or raised any funds? Like, it's more just a question of if every not-for-profit in the city said we didn't raise any funds this year because we couldn't host our normal event, then every not-for-profit in the city would be shutting down. And I'm not saying that yours isn't important, to our community. I'm not trying to discount what you do at all. But just generally, is there anything you've tried that's failed? Or did you have anything in the works that maybe you can't do right now because of COVID? Because I just look at some of the initiatives, even the polar bear splash that was totally virtual, that several members of council participated in. There was an opportunity to raise $20,000, and I get times are tight for a lot of people, and you can't go to everyone. But it's just more a question of what's been tried and what hasn't worked to get to you to where you are right now.
Well, we're going to do the highway cleanup here in a couple weeks. That raises like $500 for the 5 kilometers. We do receive a donation from Husky for my service as volunteer, because I am an employee of Husky, or Synovus now. And little things like that we've tried. We are looking at some online things, but we were hoping we'd be back to normal by now and doing our regular fundraising, stuff the cruiser for the RCMP and our barbecues and stuff that we have all summer. But we haven't come up with anything yet that's viable for our group.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I've got Councillor Fagnan followed by Councillor Merritt. Councillor Fagnan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I know that sometimes with the Citizens on Patrol, there's highs and lows as far as volunteers go. And I'm just kind of curious, how many members, how many volunteers do you currently have in your arsenal?
Yeah, currently we're down to about 12 or 13 members. We had a high about 2 years ago of 35, and we have to do some more recruiting right away. But in our current environment, it's hard to attract anybody because we can't do patrols right now. Everybody's afraid to go out in the cars. But we're at a low of about 12 to 13 people right now.
So you're not doing any patrols at all currently?
Not currently. The options there if people want to go out, but being our group is more of the older age, elderly people, they just don't want to be out in the public, period.
So
even with masks.
When did the patrols cease? What month was that? And was that in 2020?
Last summer, we haven't really had any activity whatsoever, but we're still incurring costs for keeping the vehicles up, licensing and whatnot. But we haven't had any expenses or in income. We hope to get rolling here as soon as this is we get to go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Merritt.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Larry, for your presentation today. I'm familiar with the good work that Citizens on Patrol Society does. I just wasn't really familiar with the structure and that you actually own those 3 vehicles. I guess I hadn't actually thought about it before, but I'm wondering in a typical year, how much money would you raise? And do you have some like ability to kind of raise more money than you need and put it into some reserves?
Average year, about $6,000 is what we budget for, and that covers all our expenses. We did have a run there where we bought the 3 vehicles, but we were also doing Bobcat security, which gave us a substantial income, but that's no longer viable. So we budget about $5,000 to $6,000 a year for all our expenses, and that's what we try to raise.
Okay, thank you very much. The other question or comment that I had was, and I think it's already been alluded to, but just either the radar funds or the cannabis licensing fee, as that's for protective services as well, might be an option for us. So I'd be interested in hearing this come to council.
Any other questions for Mr. Larry? Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I think just for some clarity, thanks, Mr. Larry, for your presentation as well. The reason that you can't do any patrols or aren't doing any patrols right now is the structure, right? You can't, I just can't go out on my own for safety reasons and everything else. You're putting more than one person in a vehicle, and that's probably the concern of the volunteers, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Our insurance won't cover individual activities. It has to be partnerships or buddy system.
Yeah, you bet. Just wanted to put that out there for the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Buckingham. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Larry? Mr. Larry, thank you for your presentation. As you can gather, we've asked for some information from the administration. So again, this will come to a council meeting for further discussion and I suspect a decision of one sort or another.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Moving on to agenda item number 5.1, I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For item 5.1, 2021, quarter one, governance document update, I will ask Chelsea Green to present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Chelsea. Thank you so much.
I'm here to present you with the first quarter governance document review update. The report attached outlines all governance documents to be reviewed in 2021, as well as the status of those scheduled in the first quarter. In the first quarter, administration was able to complete the review of all documents scheduled for the first quarter and brought forward a total of 7 additional governance documents for Council's approval. I will open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'll look to Council for questions or comments. Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is more just a comment more than anything. Like it's great that we continue to see these on a regular basis, and that we're looking at them. I know with the business expense and travel policy, since we've moved it, I think there's been changes in we'll say the CRA guidelines in the last few years as far as the number that we use, and I know that we've gone off of those in terms of understanding what's reasonable. So I do think it's worthy of going through that one again. The one that I was questioning was whether or not we bother with some of the ones for Q2, like the aquatic facilities allocation policy. I don't know that it's going to be worth our time right now, based on the fact that I don't know that it's normal circumstances when we look at things like that. So I'm just wondering how much is COVID coming into what we're looking at with some of these things.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question, Councillor Thorson. That's something that we've been considering, looking through some stuff. We have some items from last year that haven't been able to move forward as there's been a lot of changes, and COVID has kind of changed things for a lot of people, process-wise and finance-wise. So things like the aquatic facilities allocation policy, what I do each quarter at the beginning, I send out all of those policies and bylaws that are due for review to those management staff, and they send in their comments to me on whether or not they think that it's feasible for that to be done within that quarter. I leave them on the schedule, as we want to make sure that things don't just kind of get tossed in the back burner, and Council's still aware and up to date on the things that are being updated and that we're aware of them.
Okay. Good. Then we don't leave it hanging.
Absolutely.
Councillor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to support this kind of activity. Organizations and cities no different. It's easy to sort of leave this behind because it's not sexy, it's not demanding, it's not in your face every day. But it is an important part of what we do because it provides guidance for how we do everything that we do. So I think it's just, I think the city, again, city clerk, Chelsea, everybody's involved in this, just commending the city overall for continuing to keep this at the front and just getting through it on a regular basis. There's no other way to do it other than this. And I'd rather that we be in this position as opposed to being caught with no policy or an out-of-date policy and we have this huge liability. So this is good work and just, we need to keep doing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diachuk.
Councillor Marin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Chelsea, thank you for your presentation. This is great for me as a new councillor because it really lays out for me things that I should be looking, preparing for and understanding as that quarter comes up, that I'm prepared to talk about these different policies. So thanks for the good work, and I'll just say, the same thing as Councillor Diachuk, that this is really important for our business moving forward. I had a comment last week from someone asking about a roadside memorial policy. So then when I saw this on the list, I was like, okay, interesting. Now we have a policy or we're looking at a policy, and I can go back to them and have a conversation. And the only quick question I had was the smoking policy for quarter two. Is that an internal smoking policy, or what are you looking at there?
That's the city's main smoking policy. So smoking in public places and outside of city facilities and stuff. So it's throughout the entire city.
So it's the policy on city facilities or the bylaw?
This would be the policy. We also have a bylaw as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Great.
Also, for clarity, the policy would apply to city facilities, city-owned properties. The bylaw would apply to the city itself.
Thank you, City Clerk.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Diachuk.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. One more question, and I'm just sort of wondering where it is, but we had talked about developing a policy for art on sculpture work on our properties and our spaces. Where are we at with that? And where is it in the queue? And any updates on that?
Yes, thank you for your question, Councillor Diachuk. I believe that the Community Development Services team is currently doing some research to figure out what best practices are and what other cities have in place, just to ensure that when that's brought forward, we're addressing all of the concerns that other municipalities have had, as well as the concerns that have been brought forward to council in the past.
Thanks. So that's probably Q3 or 4.
Yes, I would anticipate later this year.
I believe the city manager had his hand up. He might be able to give us.
Yeah, it's on our agenda for executive leadership team on Wednesday for initial presentation to our ELT team. So that is coming forward then.
Thank you very much, City Manager. Chelsea, if I can ask a question, I'm looking at the schedule for Q1 to Q4 on page 15 of the overall agenda. In Q4, we're going to be reviewing street sweeping policy, which I think is a great idea because street sweeping will be done for the year. We've got winter road maintenance policy under that in Q4. Is there a possibility that the administration could look at that in Q3? Simply that by Q4, they could be out maintaining the roads for winter, which I'm hoping will be delayed again this winter, but we never know. And I'd hate to see us trying to maintain the roads while the team is out trying to get their input on policy at the same time.
Absolutely, Your Worship. That's a great question. I will make sure to reach out to our roads team and see if that's something they feel is feasible.
Yeah, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? Chelsea, thank you for this report and keeping the policy house in order at the city because as we can see, there's no shortage of it, and maintaining good policy, as it's been alluded to by council a couple times here today, is very, very important. And I think that's the community appreciation. So thank you very much and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Moving on to 5.2, I'll look to the city manager.
Your Worship, for 5.2, 2021 quarter 1 procurement activity, I will ask Mika Wangler to present.
Good afternoon, everyone. I okay for volume here?
You are, Mika. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship and Council, I'm here today to provide the committee with the 2021 quarter 1 procurement activity report. So as per procurement and purchasing policy, section 8.2, we are required to bring forward a procurement activity report to council on a quarterly basis. The options are that the committee accept this report as information, or that the committee requests more information, and that the item be brought forward to a future governance and priorities committee meeting. So this report, again, I usually don't go line by line, but the report is here for you to review. The procurement items that are brought forward are purchases and contracts that are awarded above $75,000. I will draw your attention to a couple of items. As you see, any amounts typically over $200,000 are automatically brought for council for approval. And then you will see a few amounts under the administration approved that exceed this amount. So some of these items have to do or are related to this IPD project, the wastewater facility. So we've got the concrete reinforcing, the pre-engineered structure, and the cast in place concrete piling that belong to that wastewater facility. As well, we have another one under community development services, so under number 2 there. For the Lloydminster Library relocation, So this contract we had a council motion approved that administration could approve this contract. So these all have previously been vetted through council one way or another, but I just thought I'd bring these ones specifically to your attention. And there is another item that I would just like to speak to regarding the wastewater treatment facility. Kind of fell in between the gaps between Q4 and Q1. We did award an earthworks tender, which was awarded to Banded Energy. And then we had just early on in Q1, we did award an optional portion of that as well to Banded Energy. So same procurement, but an option was. So they're doing a little bit more work on the wastewater project, which is not reflected in these reports, but I thought I would just let you know. So any questions to you guys?
There we are. Councillor Torson.
No, I'm not. Yeah, just comment. As we move through and the wastewater treatment plant project and the fire hall project and these other ones where we're using different procurement and construction methods, I wonder if it's almost worthy of its own column, because one way or another, those are already approved. So they're not really administrative approved, but they're approved within that construction management or procurement method. I know we're splitting hairs at this point. It just might clear up any confusion as to whether or not administration is going over and above on a regular basis their $200,000 limit.
I am definitely open to any suggestions. It was something that was considered before bringing this. I know our wastewater procurements are brought forward to council or GPC on separate matters as well, and different updates, but I'm definitely willing to consider splitting them up as however you guys would like to see them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the issue is, if you are a member of the public who's interested in looking into this and you don't necessarily watch the whole council meeting, you only see the document, it may appear as though something different than what's really going on is going on. Although it's transparent and out in the open and we're publicizing all this, I just think that it gives that context that maybe is missing from where we are right now. That's all. It looks great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Torson.
Councillor Diacek next.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I think that's a good suggestion. Alternatively, it could stay in there and then a footnote be added in there so that the explanation you gave, I guess, Mika, could be simply right below that section, and every one of those could have a little one behind it or wherever you want to put it, and then right beneath it, one just say, these have all been approved as part of a larger project, whatever. So just the explanation you gave. But either way would work. But I mean, the footnoting system works pretty good too. Accountants like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion.
Any further questions for Mika regarding the procurement report for Q1? Mika, will you mentioned the wastewater treatment plant with Banded Energy, will that be reflected in an amendment then to this report for the final council before council approves this next meeting?
Yes, I can add it to this this document for council's approval.
If you could, please, just as amended, or that it would be amended when it's received as the formal document for the next at the next meeting. Any other questions of Mika? Thank you very much, Mika. Thank you for this report. We always look forward to it. I think it's a great summary, as it's been outlined by council to our residents and taxpayers wondering what's gone on and how it's been procured in various discussions throughout the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
Back to City Manager for 5.3, the quarterly financial statements.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 5.3 quarterly financial statements, January to March of 2021, I will ask Adele Walkerick from Finance to present.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, Adele, and your volume is good.
Wonderful. So I'd like to present to you the Q1 financial update for the months of January to March 2021, starting with our statement of financial position. I'll just wait for the slide here to catch up. Wonderful. So on our statement of financial position, our financial assets are sitting at 103 million, whereas they were at 89 million in Q1 of last year. Our investment balance is driving the increase a little bit. We received some funds from federal and provincial funding sources, so we've put that money into investments in order to gain a little bit of interest income or investment income, excuse me. Our financial assets are double our liabilities, which is a slight improvement over last year. In terms of financial liabilities, we're sitting at 51.4 million versus 45.8 million last year. A little bit of a difference of 5.5 million. As you'll see, our deferred revenue is sitting at $11 million versus 6.2 last year. We've received capital grants from federal and provincial sources that will be spent in the coming months. So that's mostly related to the wastewater treatment plant. We've got some money from AMWWP, which is the Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater Program. In terms of our non-financial assets, we're sitting relatively in the same position as last year. They're very comparable at 482 million. The only item I'd like to highlight is the amount of work in progress that is sitting there to date. We have about $9 million, whereas last year we had about $5.7 million. So that just speaks to the amount of work that is going on in terms of capital projects over the last quarter. When we look down to our accumulated surplus and reserves, the only difference, there's about a $8 million difference in comparison to last year. This is mainly because of the city's effort to grow and sustain healthy reserve balances for future capital infrastructure and operating resiliency. The reserve balances are inclusive of committed funds that will be spent in 2021. So we have a reserve forecast later on in this update that will speak more to these balances. Moving on to our operating budget versus actuals for the first 3 months ending March 31st. What I'd like to highlight is at the time of budgeting, we anticipated a relatively normal year for 2021. However, in light of recent developments, we're carefully evaluating the situation and will adjust if necessary with the spring adjustments in May. In terms of revenues, overall, in Q1, our revenues are about $1.3 million lower than in 2020. So we have $10.7 million in Q1 of 2021 versus $12 million in Q1 of 2020. Our user fees are about $834,000 lower than in Q1 of 2020. If you recall, last year the restrictions and shutdowns didn't take effect until the very tail end of Q1 2020. So we expected that Q1 2021 would be lower. The restrictions and uncertainty led to the closure of the arenas a lot earlier this year than in a normal given year. So it's anticipated that Q2 2021 will be higher than Q2 of 2020 because last year we did have those shutdowns and restrictions in our rec and culture department. I'll also highlight our licenses and permits are higher than last year at this time. We have collected 597,000 versus 555,000 in 2020. It's a signal that the community is ready and poised to get back to work, whereas last year they were facing such uncertainty due to the pandemic. Moving along to our expenditures. In general, about this point in time, we would see about 25% of our budget spent for relatively static expenses. However, there are many of the expenditures that are driven by seasonality. Highlighting contracted services, we've spent about 19% of our contracted services budget to date. It's about $120,000 less than this point in time last year. The city is about 45% below the budget for the first 3 months of 2021. The city realized some major cost savings because no residential snow clearing was required in Q1. This is a savings of about $750,000. We also are about 45% below budget for the first 3 months in goods and materials. Again, that's related to the season. We had a cost savings in salt and sand, also lower fuel costs and repair and maintenance costs and fleet services. The last item I'd like to highlight under expenditures is related to our utilities. In prior years, the utility expenses were always 1 month behind. We have improved this process, and the expenses reflect the proper period of January to March 2021. So our utilities are slightly under budget for Q1, specifically under streetlights and the wastewater treatment plant. Electricity costs are typically driven by the seasons and the weather, so we normally see the cost peak in spring and summer, depending on what the weather is like. I will just make a quick note in terms of bad debt. You'll see there's a negative $1,500. The city received payments on accounts that we had previously written off. Last but not least, I'll also make a quick remark on government transfers to capital. There's a negative $2,500. This was just a minor adjustment to make to our capital grants to reflect the accurate percentage that we are receiving from provincial and federal funding sources.
Del, if I could just
Yes.
stop you on the bank charges from the previous year. I believe you're on budget, but there's a significant difference from the first quarter in 2021 or the actuals to 2020. So can you explain that, please?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Albers. This is a little bit of a difference. What we've done is reclassified some of our payment processing fees. So in prior years, so in 2020, the payment processing fees were under contracted services. For transparency, we've decided and elected to move them to be under bank charges so that we can more closely monitor them and then ensure that we are, achieving efficiencies and being able to show that.
Thank you. So next year it'll be a little closer, I suspect, and as things are all accounted the same way.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Any other questions on this page? Back to you, Adele.
Thank you. Overall, we're sitting in a deficit for Q1 of $3 million, but this is very normal for Q1. Typically, we receive most of our revenues in Q2 as taxes are levied. Moving along to our operating budget versus actuals by department. This is the same information as you saw in the prior statement. However, I will touch on the revenues under general government are slightly down in comparison to last year, as well as rec and culture. That was very much anticipated. We're almost $500,000 lower than 2020, mainly because of the shutdown. So our revenues are at $10.7 million versus $12 million last year. In terms of expenditures, we can see under transportation services, they are $186,000 lower than in 2020, which again demonstrates the cost savings realized because of the lack of residential snow clearing that occurred in Q1. Under recreation and culture, we can see that expenses are just slightly lower than in 2020. While we have lost significant revenue in rec and culture, we have not seen an equivalent reduction in expenses. This is because we anticipate to keep our facilities open, so we will continue to incur costs. That being said, I know management is closely monitoring the situation and adjusting it as necessary. So moving on to the next page, I'd like to introduce a new report for you. This report highlights the existing reserve balances as well as demonstrates a forecast to December 31st, 2021. So as of March 31st, the balance of our reserves were sitting at just under $57.5 million. In terms of our forecast, which is at $48.7 million, at December 31st. The forecast includes all of the anticipated transfers to reserves, which increases the balance, as well as our commitments from reserves, which reduces the balance. So overall, we're anticipating being a little bit lower than where we are today, as soon as all of our capital projects are finalized, the ones that we are committed and budgeted to complete. So this also demonstrates that the city is utilizing reserve funds to fund capital projects and reduce the tax burden for the current year. The second part of this, this page includes reserve funding verification. This section transparently demonstrates that the city is meeting its commitment to fully fund reserves per the reserves policy that was introduced. This is verified by ensuring that the total balance of cash and investments are greater than the total balance of reserves at any point in time. So as we can see, our total of liquid assets is sitting at $78.7 million, which is greater than the total balance of reserves today, which is at $57.4, almost $5 million. Are there any questions on this new statement?
No, I do appreciate it though, Adele. I think that the reserve funding verification is a very good number that is very clear and transparent to council, as well as all the city taxpayers that make up, that's where that money's come from and where the money is today. So that there's no, it's very clear that there is money to support what's in reserves. Any other comments? Councillor Thorson, you good?
No, not on this page. I'm good.
All right. Adele, if you would continue, please.
Wonderful. So moving on to our capital budget versus actual update for the first 3 months ending March 31st. In 2021, we anticipate completing 163 projects, which includes carryovers from prior years. To date, 3 projects are complete. 104 projects are in progress, which makes up 64%. 2 projects are on hold. The 2 projects that are on hold are as a result of declined funding from provincial and federal sources. I'll talk more on that in just a second here. 54 projects are not started, so that makes up 33%. Currently, administration is reviewing the capital list for 2021 and determining which projects will not be completed in 2021 and will bring forward an adjustment in the spring adjustments in May. Some of these adjustments are the result of delays in manufacturing and delivery and so forth. And so we feel it's appropriate to remove them from the list, defer them, or so forth, and to ensure that we're actually completing what we set out to complete. In comparison to 2020, we have 12 less projects. So we provide a comparison to the 2020 budget just to demonstrate where we are. In terms of projects, at this point in time last year, 8 were complete, 98 were in progress, and 69 were not started, which represents 39% of projects that were not started at this point in time in 2020. Just to elaborate a little bit on the 2 projects that are on hold, I'll give you some information here. This was related to the ISIP Saskatchewan COVID-19 resilience infrastructure stream. The province, which is the province of Saskatchewan, and the federal funding both declined the project. So they're currently on hold and will be reviewed to see if there are other funding sources available, and we'll evaluate that and bring it forward during spring adjustments. So that concludes our 2021 Q1 financial update, and I'm open to any questions or feedback that you might have at this time.
Questions or comments from council? Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. In terms of the numbers, I don't really have anything as far as anything that jumped off the page that was of great concern or curiosity to me. I do appreciate, all of the reports coming forward. And most of all, I do appreciate the fact that we're on the 19th of April and looking at Q1 numbers. It's not that long ago where that seemed like an insurmountable feat to be able to do that. And the fact that our team is doing that successfully and on a regular basis and providing facts and figures that seem reasonable given the circumstances, I think just it speaks tremendous to, you know, how well the team is developed and how much their processes have improved over the past few years. So just generally good job to the entire team. Yeah, it looks good, and everything that is off from where it should be is off from where it should be for perfectly understandable and reasonable reasons. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Torreson. I think I can echo that. It was very similar comments. Well done to the finance team for bringing us up to speed on the 15th, 19th of April on first quarter. Any other questions from council? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Adele, for this report. We'll look forward to seeing some reports for last year, I believe, very soon from for council's review of 2020, and we'll continue on to waiting for the next quarter and see how things progress.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I will pass on your comments and feedback to the team. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Moving on to 5.4, City Manager.
Thank you, Worship. For 5.4, Lakeland College Facility Use Agreement, I will ask Joel Turcotte to present.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, Joel. You're coming through very well.
Perfect. Today I'm here to talk to you about the Lakeland College Facility Use Agreement. Lakeland College approached administration to renew the Lakeland College Student Access Agreement. This agreement allows Lloydminster campus full-time students access to the Service Sports Center and Bioclinic Aquatic Center during the school term. In 2015, Lakeland College and the City of Lloydminster entered into an agreement which allowed the Lloydminster campus full-time student membership access to the Service Sports Center and Bioclinic Aquatic Center during the school term. For the 2021-2024 Lakeland College Facility Use Agreement, the proposed rates for the 3-year agreement are, you can see it there on the screen. So the 2020-2021, that's our current agreement at 53, and it increases as we go on for the next 3 years. These proposed rates would need to be approved by City Council, as well as Lakeland College. In addition, Lakeland College Lloydminster campus students pay an additional $5 administration fee at each facility to activate the facility memberships. City of Lloydminster and Lakeland College both benefit from the agreement. Lakeland College full-time students are provided membership and access to the city's great facilities, providing users who may not take part in physical activity an opportunity to do so at a discounted rate through this agreement. The object is to continue the relationship with Lakeland College to offer students access to the Bioclinic Aquatic Center and Service Sports Center. Options that you have today: that the committee accepts this report as information, and that the new Lakeland College Facility Use Agreement be brought forward to the future regular council meeting for decision. And 2, that the committee requests more information and the item be brought forward to the future regular council meeting for decision. 3, that the committee requests more information and that this item be brought forward to the future governance priorities. I will note that on the budget financial implication, in 2020, the City of Lloydminster received $36,038.68 from the Lakeland College membership of full-time students from the Lloydminster campus. In addition, the students paid an extra $5 activation fee per membership. I am open for questions.
Thanks, Joel. Councillor Buckingham.
Your Worship, thanks, Joel. So it might not be the best stat based on last year. However, what is the uptake on this program from the students of Lakeland College?
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. Last year, or I should say in 2019 year, we received about 500 students taking up on that. Last year, it was marginally reduced, or quite a bit reduced. We have 135, but there was a couple of things that occurred. Of course, our facility was shut down for a while. As well, we changed software systems, and we're having a little bit of problem tracking the two systems. So the 2019 year is probably the best year to look at, which was around 500 students.
Yeah, I think that's great on a couple of fronts. Obviously, I would have to think that if we didn't offer this kind of reduced rate to students of the college, they probably wouldn't do it at all. So it's good for health. It's good for mental health, physical health. It's good for the city to have people using the facilities, obviously. And I think it's a great program. And with an uptake like that and numbers showing good usage, I think it's a really good program that we should continue. So thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions for Joelle? Councillor Marin.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Buckingham was on the same question stream as I am on. But I'm just wondering, Joelle, can you tell us of those 500 students, how many times did they?
Sorry, I couldn't hear your question, Councillor Mariam.
Sorry, Joel, for the students that have the membership, are we able to track how often they use the facilities?
I don't have that stat today, although that might be a stat that I can get the team to pull down off the software system, but I do not have that stat with me today.
Yeah, that's fine. I just would be curious to know, like, if they're getting the cards, then are we actually having the intended outcome in that they use the facility? So that would be good information to have when you bring it forward to council.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Torreson, I believe you had your hand up. You're muted, Councillor.
It'll get you. To be clear, when we say per term, do we mean for an entire school year, or do we mean each semester there's a $53 charge?
It's for the school year.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Councillor.
City Clerk, did I see your arm up? Did you have a comment? No. Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Joelle? Joelle, I have one. Has these proposed amounts been discussed with Lakeland College administration, that they're aware that this is being presented to City Council today?
Yes, they have.
Okay. And there was no negative feedback from the college, I suspect?
Absolutely not. This system has been working very well since 2015.
Great. I think, as Councillor Buckingham alluded to, there is a lot of value, and certainly it would make no sense for duplication of the college trying to provide amenities to the students that exist in the city, and the city able to get maximum usage out of their facilities by having additional users. And again, knowing that students are working on a limited budget, I appreciate the opportunity that they can engage. Both healthy minds and healthy bodies will lead to a more productive city all the way around. So I think it's a really good step in the relationship that, as you outlined, Joelle, back in 2015 is when this started. And I think it's just great to see continuation being offered. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Fagnan.
Thank you for your presentation, Joelle. Yeah, I totally agree with the project. I think it's phenomenal, the program. I was wondering when you're going to be digging out those stats. I've had a number of people complaining to me on the difficulty of booking the pool, and I'm wondering if your crew is keeping track of those that are no-shows or that are canceling numerous times, just so that I can answer these folks that are complaining to me. If you would check out that stat, that would be much appreciated.
Absolutely, Councillor. We will review those and get you some information.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Joelle on the Lakeland College rates? Thank you, Joelle. Muchly appreciated. And thank you for the report.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.5 and back to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 5.5, Social Needs Assessment Update, I will ask Patrick Lancaster to present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Patrick. You're coming through good and clear. Thank you. So please carry on.
Excellent. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I think I just need to be granted permission to share. Here we go. slide deck showing up okay?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. All right. So it's my pleasure to present an update on the Community Social Needs Assessment. Many of you would be familiar with the Social Needs Assessment, which was conducted in our community in 2017. This was a project that was put together in partnership between the City of Lloydminster and the Lloydminster Regional Health Foundation. The intent was to engage residents and measure indicators of social well-being to determine what issues were impacting their lives and learn what's important to them so that we can inform future programs and services delivered in the city. The process was tremendously successful. We received 2,168 surveys, and we conducted numerous focus groups with key stakeholders within our community. Following the collection of data, our report was presented to City Council and the Lloydminster Regional Health Foundation Board on January 25th, 2018, and again at a public council meeting January 29th. Within the report that was generated, we highlighted 4 key areas of concern. In particular, mental health, where 32% of respondents indicated that they had been personally impacted by mental health issues, and 46% of respondents had family or friends that had been impacted by a mental health concern. Community connection, roughly 27 to 28% of respondents indicated they didn't feel connected to other people in the community or really a sense of belonging in the community. Access to recreation, 22% of respondents indicated that they did not have access to affordable recreation options. And feelings of safety. A significant number of respondents made comments within the survey regarding concerns around bullying, family violence, and property crime. Following these presentations, the Lloydminster Regional Health Foundation developed their plan, Project Sunrise, that was intended to address many of the health concerns that were raised in the report. Our department, Social Programs and Services, developed deliverables that were approved Council May 28th, 2018, and the deliverables were intended to serve as kind of a plan or kind of a working document to give us some direction of what pieces from the needs assessment we would be concentrating our efforts. So we had some areas of success and some areas of challenge. In particular, areas that, and we'll highlight this as we in more detail as we go through. There was a good increase of knowledge of community resources. We were able to develop and deliver increased services around building connection at a neighborhood level. And some progress was made around removing financial barriers to recreation. Areas that we didn't see as much progress on included initiatives to build empathy and understanding, development of a recreation directory, and creating opportunities for residents to engage in public safety programs. And some of this was due to resource availability and shifting priorities. So some of the deliverables that we'll talk about, and I'll kind of break these up into the different sections. There were some areas of mental health that we did participate in. And these were done to a certain degree in partnership with Project Sunrise. One of them was collaborating with in regards to improving mental health and addiction services. We indicated that we would collaborate with community partners to enhance the social service roadmap, as it was called at the time, and increase knowledge of community resources. This is a process that we put some effort into in 2019 and has been ongoing since. With working with our communications department, we rebranded the social service roadmap into Lloyd Supports. And with the new city website platform, we were actually able to completely redo how we deliver the online directory. Once upon a time, it was just this massive PDF document that you'd have to download. It wasn't very phone friendly and was difficult to navigate. Now we have a much more data friendly document that's easier to navigate online, and a more inclusive, diverse look to the branding around the document. One of the things that we have noticed is that information and referral calls have significantly increased with the number of calls we get up about 57% from 2017 to 2020. So this would be when people call in directly to us to ask for help with services. We also worked with Project Sunrise as their team developed the mental health Navigator. This is an excellent tool for helping residents to be mindful of mental wellness and to get connected to different supports and services in the community. We'll continue to support them as they develop that in the future. We've also worked with 211 Alberta and Saskatchewan to help enhance their database and capacity in Lloydminster, which has become very important over this last year with the 211 program going national, thanks to some increased federal funding. And we continue to collaborate with different mental health providers. As you can see, they're just flying up there to deliver awareness campaigns that decrease stigma associated with mental health and to raise awareness. So between 2018 and 2020, we hosted 17 different workshops and initiatives. And these were all done in collaboration with community partners. We didn't do a single one of these in isolation. And we had over 2,700 participations throughout those last, or over the course of those 2 years. And this would include things ranging from the senior brain workshops to the Disconnect to Connect program to seniors mental health first aid. And so we will continue to support and participate in an advisory capacity with community partners addressing mental health. So we are still active members with, and will continue to attend Project Sunrise meetings and participate in the prevention and promotion subcommittees. Lloydminster FCSS has also assisted with accessing funding from the Canadian Mental Health Association Rural Mental Health Project to help with the animator funding for Project Sunrise, which totaled about $3,400. So the next area of concern where we had some deliverables was improving feelings of a sense of community and decreasing isolation. So one of our deliverables was to increase awareness of the existing block party program through enhanced marketing and communication. And again, really have to sing the praises of the city's communication department, who assisted us with developing new advertising assets and new branding around the block party program, which really kind of gave it a fresh look and really helped to get the word out on different bulletin boards and benches and pamphlets and different things. And this all sort of kicked off July 10th of 2018. And we saw our average, so our neighborhood block party bookings increase from typically 2 residential and 5 community bookings in 2017 to 14 residential and 26 community bookings in 2019. So a significant shoot up in numbers and just proof that when you get the message out, it really helps to get people into your programming. We had other programs developed to help bring residents together at a neighborhood and community level. In particular, in 2018, the Neighborhood Rink program went online. For those not familiar, this is a process by which residents can apply over the city website to create and maintain neighborhood rinks that overlap on city property. This program did really saw a big jump up this last year because we believe in relation to COVID-19 restrictions. In the past, we've seen maybe a couple of rinks a year, 2 rinks per year, whereas this year we saw 6 get approved across the city. Some other programs that are in the planning stage would be, we're hoping to put together a neighborhood connector program similar to abundant community programs that are run in other municipalities. This is slated for 2021, 2022, depending on when we're able to have people knocking on doors again, as well as we have started working on promoting volunteer connector to enhance the connection or the ability for residents to connect with volunteer opportunities within our community, as well as this will be a big part of the role of our new hire that's coming onto our team. Oh, and sorry, I got ahead of my chart here. So the block party data is just showing up here and just shows you the increase, and you can see the spike coincides with when the marketing came into effect. And lastly, on that front, we intend to research and develop recommendations to make Lloydminster a more welcoming and inclusive community. So some of the pieces of work that's been done on this so far is we joined the Lloydminster Local Immigration Partnership, and we've partnered with the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association and Rural Municipalities of Alberta to host a Kairos blanket exercise. And I believe that was just in 2019. The work with the Local Immigration Partnership, or LIP, continues on an ongoing basis. In regards to improve affordable and accessible recreation, some of our deliverables included collaborate with community partners in the Recreation and Culture Department to identify barriers to the community and to community recreation activities and develop strategies to overcome them. That one we didn't get. We kind of focused primarily on the financial barrier, so I'm going to jump ahead to the item, or sorry, on item 10. I'll speak to that. We also don't have any updates on providing community engagement activities with the intent to determine what activities of interest could bring residents together. So we were hoping to look at doing a little bit of engagement around that, but with again resources available and with shifting priorities, that wasn't an area we focused on. We did, however, have significant success with item 10, which was work with the Recreation and Culture Department to develop a proposal to remove financial barriers to recreation services for low-income residents. So many of you are already familiar with the Recreation Access Program. The policy around this was approved in 2019. And in that first year, we saw 450 participants in the program. So we had really great uptake right out of the gate on that one. The Recreation and Culture Department also acquired funding through SPRA for the Removing Registrations Barrier project, in which they were able to provide families the opportunity to participate in programs free of charge. Another deliverable, prioritize community grant funds to organizations that introduce accessible and affordable sport, cultural, and recreation programs. So this came into play in 2018 when Council approved the Saskatchewan Lotteries community grant policy. Particularly the item in there around priority will be given to projects that support the inclusion of underrepresented populations in programs or establish new programs to meet the needs of underrepresented populations. Now, Saskatchewan Lotteries up until this point had always had a requirement that a certain percentage of those projects had to meet that requirement. But by Council approving it as a priority, it really did shift how a lot of the funds for Saskatchewan Lotteries has been dispersed in the following years. And we've seen a significant increase in the amount of funds going to organizations that are serving groups in particular with disabilities or serving populations struggling with mental health concerns. And then lastly, under this area is partner with the Recreation and Culture Department to develop a recreation directory. There has been some work on this, but it again hasn't been something that we've had the capacity to really complete up to this point. In regards to improving feelings of safety and support in our community, one of the deliverables was increased promotion of opportunities for residents to engage in programs regarding public safety. So one of the areas, and this was forwarded to us from our public safety department, is regards to citizens on patrol. And citizens are trained to patrol the city in marked COP vehicles in pairs and observe, record, and report suspicious behavior. There was also the Let's Talk Policing program. Residents are encouraged to tune into virtual town hall hosted by officers in charge of the Lloydminster RCP. Video presentations on a variety of topics presented with a chat forum to provide feedback on priorities and ask questions. And this is done twice annually as advertised on the city website. In regards to increasing awareness around existing programs and supports, that in turn will increase feelings of support and safety in our community. In 2018, we facilitated connections between the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Saskatchewan and Public Safety Department, as well as the Interagency Network. These are programs for where neighborhoods are able to, or residents are able to seek out additional supports through Safer Communities and Neighborhoods in addressing crime properties in their neighborhoods. There's an ongoing partnership with the Lloydminster Interval Home Society for Family Violence Prevention Month. We joined the Lloydminster Elder Abuse Prevention Committee, and in 2018 we expanded the capacity of the Youth Graffiti Cleanup Program to include multiple dates for a larger community impact, and it started implementing murals in public. In regards to developing a community mobilization toolkit that'll help residents organize grassroots community initiatives. This is active, however, we haven't necessarily deployed any programs yet. We have completed an initial design on a neighborhood grant program that is was scheduled for potential rollout in 2021 and will be dependent again on what our COVID restrictions are this year. Planning is also underway for the Neighborhood Connector program, again, dependent on how COVID restrictions look for this year or going into next year. And then this last one is inactive, but research and deploy initiatives that focus on the development of empathy and understanding. So that project has not necessarily been pursued, and there's no update to provide on it. So for next steps, the Social Programs and Services Department will conduct another Community Social Needs Assessment in 2022. This assessment will be delivered in partnership with other City of Lloydminster departments and will be an in-depth community engagement exercise to ensure the residents of the community are heard and involved. The information obtained through this assessment will be used to create a 5 to 10 year social policy framework in 2023. A social policy framework provides direction and support to city initiatives that will have an impact on the social well-being of residents. It will be a high-level strategic document that is intended to be fluid and measurable. The social policy framework will be a tool to identify the social needs of Lloydminster, what is important to the community, and measure the impact of social programs and policy. It'll be a strategic direction for the city and our public and private partners in collaborating to build social well-being. And it'll be a lens to see opportunities to develop social well-being through all city departments. As Lloydminster transitions out of the COVID-19 pandemic and into recovery in 2022, the importance of having current data and clear direction will become increasingly vital. And understanding what is impacting our residents, what can be done, who should be involved, and what our roles and what roles should they have, it's critical to effective and efficient service delivery. So I hope that you will find this report useful, and I guess I'm open for questions, Your Worship.
Thank you, Patrick. I will open up questions. Councillor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you, Patrick, for the report. I think a lot of great work going on. The one area, though, I just wanted to ask about was seniors housing. Does that fit under this umbrella? Because I think we did this social needs assessment a couple years back. That was an area where a little more information would have been helpful, I think, overall in terms of the city planning. And I know we have a wait list over at Pioneer Lodge, and they're a different sort of client than we might have over at, let's say, Nautical with their resources that they're coming in with more independent style of lifestyle, if you like. But will that be an element within that needs survey?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Now, I'll just backtrack for a moment. Shortly after, around the same time that the social needs assessment was completed, there was also a housing needs assessment that was released as a separate document, and there was some mention around seniors housing in there. However, you're absolutely right. When we do the social needs assessment, we'll be looking at numerous social issues that impact residents, to be taking some measure on them, and that will include seniors housing. And what I would hope would come from as we develop the social policy framework is we'll have some direction on, say, if seniors housing is identified as a high priority, high need issue within the community, that social policy framework will help us to define what is our role as a city or different departments in addressing that issue. Would it be as a facilitator, as a convener, bringing people together, as a funder? Do we intend to advocate to provincial governments around it? Do we intend to run these programs? So that's by getting a sense of what the needs are, and then what is our role and our response. It'll allow us to start building plans of action around that, and it helps set the tone when we're building partnerships with different community groups.
Yeah, I know the housing survey did provide, additional supports, and we're certainly looking at it. The only other piece as well is that homes and accommodations for those with disabilities in our community as well. And I don't know whether that fits in because it's really a really specific kind of nuanced area. But I do know there are a number of people that certainly have that as an interest and have actually built, either duplexes or fourplexes, whatever, with individuals with, special needs. What I don't know is how big a need that is within our own community and whether that's something that needs to be enhanced relative to that service. But around housing, that would be certainly those are a couple of points that have come across, discussions I've had with individuals in the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions for Patrick? Councillor Torreson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Patrick, just as far as the updated social needs assessment, is that something that you intend to do internally, or will you be looking externally to have that done?
I'm optimistic that we can deliver the project internally with similar success that we had in the previous social needs assessment, particularly in working with some of our other public-facing departments like communications, recreation, economic development, and public safety. However, we may be looking for some resources around bringing on some contractors to do some of the engagement work, but we do want to maintain a fair bit of control over the process, at least at this stage in our planning. That may be subject to change based on future direction.
Okay. Well, I just, as a general, am I muted? No, I'm not. Perfect. As a general comment, I would just say that you and your team, and I would say administration in general, has done a really good job of picking off some of the low-hanging fruit of the things that we're able to do and really focusing on the items that are really more municipal mandates. I know when that report first came out, looking back at it now, there's quite a bit in there that is a challenge for us as a municipality in that, when you get in too much into the mental health and addictions type of issues, those are provincial mandates. And yes, I think it's important that we raise a flag where issues are there and they're not being dealt with. But in general, this document has still been very useful for other organizations like the Lloydminster and District Health Advisory Committee and the Lloydminster Health Foundation that's been advocating for those things. So end of the day, it's been a useful document. But I do think, as much as mental health is an issue in this community and everyone knows and understands that, that we have to make sure that we're focusing on our city mandates and how to address those things, and not necessarily being, providers of mental health services, addiction services, things like that, but just making sure that the resources that we have are helping people get to the things that they need, as well as ensuring that our programs and services we're providing are acknowledge the difficulties that people have in their individual lives, and that we're really open for, business for people with all sorts of different issues in their lives. So thank you. And thanks for what you do.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Merrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Patrick, thank you for this presentation. We always want to know when we do a project like the Lloyd Needs or the Social Needs Assessment, how are we doing afterwards in terms of those recommendations? And so I just wanted to just make a comment about the usefulness of this report. And so it was done in partnership with Lloydminster Region Health Foundation. So it wasn't just the city, it was a partnership to complete the needs assessment. So many of the things in it are relative to what the city can control, and then some of the things in it were more community and health, and the Health Region Foundation with Project Sunrise certainly could move some of those items forward. So I wanted to just say thank you as well for the partnership that you offered in the Rural Mental Health Network, and being the helping us to get that initial grant to become one of those navigators or animators in this community. And because of that, we've since qualified to apply for more funding, and we have a significant grant coming into our community to address some of the needs or the things that were identified as needs in this Lloyd Needs Assessment. The other thing that this really helped us as community do was many of the grant applications, if you know the SHINE project, so mental health capacity building in both of our school divisions, we use this report to really show the need for investment from Alberta Health Services into our community. And we got coaches in each of our schools in Lloydminster. So really significant projects have happened because of this work, and it benefits our whole community. I think I had a question somewhere. Oh, I know what it was. So I think perhaps you've answered it, but in the social needs or the social policy framework, I've been reading some from Lethbridge and Red Deer, I think Strathcona or Sherwood Park, and I'm wondering if there's kind of a model that you're going to follow, or if you've kind of gotten into that to start to kind of flesh that out a little bit. But I know, like, looking at affordability, access to programs and services, safety, connectedness, inclusion, those seem to be pretty standard themes. And so is that what you're hoping to do in the social policy framework here?
We haven't landed on necessarily a template that we can cookie cutter to Lloydminster yet for a social policy framework. However, we have started looking at other communities. Of course, Strathcona County does have some amazing stuff there, Red Deer as well. So it'll be something that probably develops more once we get the new data from the social needs assessment to just make sure that we're finding something that's the right fit for our community. So it's something we're still digging into, an exact model or template that we might bring forward for consideration. But first, really, we need to have some of those conversations and get that engagement and get that data first before we can really land on anything.
Right. And just another question. So in the recommendations from the Lloyd Needs report, it would be, I would be curious to know, if we ask those questions again today, the same questions, if it would show that we've improved, because lots of work has happened to address those recommendations. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity somehow to ask those same questions, just to see how are we doing, kind of a, judge how well we did with implementing those changes and those supports.
A great question. And in fact, with some of the questions that were put into the needs assessment, it was done with the intent to be able to do some comparison. Particularly, several of the questions have been drawn from FCSS outcome measures, standard measures that we use in our programs, and have been kind of vetted as for the province uses them for all FCSS programs to measure are the programs doing what they are intended to be doing. So there are probably some that we might not carry over because we didn't get particularly useful data out of them, but there are some of those big ones, particularly around the big issues, we'll definitely be wanting to do some comparison and frame those questions the same way so we can compare apples and apples.
Great, thank you very much, Patrick.
Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't pretend to be an expert on this subject by any means. I understand why we would want to compare apples to apples when we do that. I would just, to me, use some caution, because I've looked at a handful of these recently, and some of the questions really produce identical results, municipality to municipality. Do you know what I mean? And maybe it will never change over time when the questions are so general. Like, do you or anyone you know ever have suffered from a depression or mental health issue? The fact that 96% people say that isn't surprising to me, because I think everyone would know someone, and maybe I'm wrong, or has you or anyone you know ever been a victim of violence or bullying? Like, those are very general questions. Anyone you know at all? So I just wonder, you know, I'm getting into the specifics of it and I don't know what the answer is, but to me, some of the results of those things are very general, and I don't know that they're the most useful things. I think when you dig deeper into those documents and you get to more of what was done at the next level with some of the groups, and when you get to some of the other questions, I think there's useful information. And when you look at what the city's programming is and what the improvements are, I think there's usefulness. I would just be cautious of some of it, because to me, I think there's a lot of generalizations that show up in not necessarily this report, but other reports like it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments for Patrick? Again, Patrick, thank you so much for your report and for the great work that you and your team do. I know you have a small team, the city, but you deliver incredible results and you work so collaboratively with so many. And I think that speaks volumes for you and your team, how you help bring the information together, connect people in our community, and please continue that effort. It's very well recognized, and thank you for the work you do. Moving on then to 5.6, I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 5.6, RM of Britannia, number 502, request a cost share culvert installation. I will ask Karen De La Rosa to present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon, Karen, and you are coming through clear, so please carry on.
Thank you. So in March of 2021, the City of Lloydminster received a written notice from the RM of Britannia, number 502, to consider cost sharing in the culvert installation project in Range Road 3273, Section 4-50-27 west of the 3rd Meridian. The reasoning for this is due to the considerable amount of water that runs through the system that originates from the City of Lloydminster. The installation work was completed by the RM in 2020 at the cost of $147,063.55, excluding GST, and the RM requests that the city cost share 50% of the total cost, which amounts to $73,531.78, excluding GST. Communication between the RM and the city regarding this project commenced in early 2020. The city indicated that we need specific documents to co-fund the project. The RM did not provide confirmation at that time to the city and move forward with the construction. The RM revisited the request for co-funding in late 2020 and provided the requested information in March of 2021 for administration's review. Cost sharing is designed to ensure that those who may benefit from the local improvement pay the cost. Upon review of the documentation submitted by the RM, administration acknowledges that the city would be in support of co-funding the project. Administration also identified that the proof of construction notification to landowners was not provided by the RM as per our request. Administration will bring forward a recommendation to a future council meeting that the city co-fund the RM's request for the culvert installation in the amount of $73,531.78, excluding GST. Additionally, administration recommends a caveat that future co-funding requests will require further collaboration and input from the City of Lloydminster. This will include submission of all project documentation required by the city to ensure the project is completed in accordance with the city standards and practices. The culvert installation project does not have an approved budget, and it is anticipated to be allocated from the Stormwater Self-Supported Special Capital Reserve number 1-300-350-37116.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions or comments for Karen? City Manager.
Yeah, I would also ask, and as part, or say that as part of, Karen made the comment that we would ask for project documentation to ensure the project was completed in accordance. We also will be asking for it to come ahead of time during a budget process versus in a manner like this. And so that was one of the things that both parties have come to I guess, a general understanding of, and that it doesn't come after the fact asking for the money. So that was one of the other things that I would add as well to Karen's report.
Thank you, City Manager. Councillor Thorson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering where exactly kind of is this, if you were to give roughly a verbal description of where it is?
I can share my screen, Councillor.
Okay, perfect.
It's within the Neely Edmonds complex, so it's a road crossing within the Neely Edmonds complex. I'm just gonna try and find. Oh. Okay. It's not allowing me to share my screen just yet. Right. It's this road crossing here. So this is Highway 16. This is the road crossing on this section here.
Okay.
So just in reference, this is our wastewater treatment plant. So it flows and meanders around here and then eventually ends up in this culvert here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Councillor Whiting and then Councillor Diachuk.
Thank you very much. I went to the map as well to try and piece this together, figure out where it was, and I thought it might be a little bit closer to the lake, and in which case then I could kind of understand that, you know, yeah, it's right there. I don't know where we draw the line as far as how far out and away from our boundaries and this waterway system. You know, I get that it probably has a lot, it does have a lot to do with our stormwater runoff that comes into that space, and just, you know, moving forward, how do we, you know, where do we draw the line? Do we have a policy on this for cost sharing stormwater outside of our boundaries?
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Whiting. So the Neely Edmonds complex is basically a stormwater complex that carries pretty much over 96% of the city's stormwater. So right now we do have control of this entire complex up to this road crossing here. And that control includes a permit to operate from the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, and we control basically the levels of the water that comes through and flows through this complex. In terms of a policy for cost sharing, we don't have anything written at this point. However, we do believe that this collaboration with the RM definitely is very beneficial in terms of starting our conversations on cost sharing projects that are beneficial to the city as a whole.
Councillor Whiting.
When you say you have control, what does that, explain that a little bit more, just so I'm clear on that as well too.
For sure. So control, we do have control structures along this complex here. We have 5 control structures where we are required to control the levels of water that is coming through the complex. And along this complex, we also have 5 road crossings. So this is this crossing specifically here is road crossing number 2. And this is the one that the RM is replacing as part of their project.
Any other questions on that, Councillor?
No, that's good. I appreciate that, and I can see moving forward that somehow this would be incorporated into a budget and a different process than the way that it happened today. But I understand. I assume that last year maybe was a bit of a, I don't know, maybe you could say it was an emergency with all the high water that we had. But I can see how it's necessary for us to do some cost sharing here, perhaps.
I've got Executive Manager Stang, and then I've got 2 more councillors. So Executive Manager Stang, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, councillors. Just to add to Karen's comment on control, this complex used to be owned and operated by Ducks Unlimited, and back in 2012, the city of Lloydminster was handed the operations and resources over to the city to maintain. As Karen indicated, most of our stormwater flows through this. We were required to get agreements with all the landowners along that complex, so we do have access to the entire complex, as well as the 5 structures Director De La Rosa spoke to. And you know, as far as the road crossings, if there's issues with those, it holds up our water, which potentially causes flooding downstream of that. So we do have significant control and interest in this complex from the city of Lloydminster to Big Gully. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Manager Stang. Got Councillor Diachuk, followed by Councillor Torreson.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just, well, one of the questions got answered. The second one, though, I would have is that, do we have other examples where, you know, they've proceeded with the projects and, you know, done them and sent us the bill? Or is this the first time and the one-off, or is there any history to this?
Yeah, Councillor Diachuk, this would be the first time where the RM had proceeded with a project and had asked us for cost share. So as alluded to in our report, the conversation has started back in 2020. However, we did not receive confirmation from the RM that they can comply to what we had required in terms of project documentation and also project specifications. We have another project with RM that we did cost share back in 2018, 2019. So this is the second cost sharing project that we have completed with the RM.
So was there any answer as to why they didn't sort of maintain this communication and process?
I think it's there had been staffing changeovers in the RM. I don't know if that's exactly why the communication kind of stopped midway. But yeah, I would assume that would be that could have potentially impacted that line of communication.
Thank you.
I've got Councillor Torreson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So yeah, given a little more thought, I had a comment and a question. First, the question is just, do we know what their project was? Were they just replacing a road?
They were doing a couple of stormwater projects around this area, basically upgrading some culverts, and this it just included this specific section here that is part of our new admins complex.
And then after that, just a comment, and that is, you know, generally, I guess just gotta clean it up in terms of our communication on these things and make sure we're on side with doing a project, you know, prior to it getting done. But on the other hand, it generally takes us, you know, a year and a half of waiting to get grant applications for 50% funding on a project. And the fact that this one was already funded 50% by someone else, I'd say that in a way that's a win, because we know that we've got a lot of those control structures down the line that we needed to address and to fix, because, you know, we know that the bottlenecks can't happen at the end without ending up with water issues within the city. So end of the day, I guess it's a good thing, and we got it done, and it's only going to be 70,000. It's the unfortunate side is just the after the fact part of this, but oh well, you know, when we look at it, we didn't have to spend the $70,000.
And I guess I was just going to echo city manager's comments regarding future collaboration with the RM. Part of it would be planning for these types of projects and ensuring that these projects come through the budget process.
Thank you for the questions, councillors, and the comments, Karen. Any other questions regarding this item? Thank you very much, Karen, for that report. It's now 3:29. I would like to propose that we take a short recess. So I'd look for a motion to recess. Councillor Whiting, seconded by Councillor Fagnan. All in favor? And we'll take a 10-minute recess and be back at 3:40.
And as a reminder to council, don't exit the meeting, just shut your camera and your mic's off.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. See the clock has reached the 3:40 time. I hereby call the GPC meeting back to order at this time. I will look to City Manager for 6.1 utility rate proposal.
Thank you, Worship. For 6.1 utility rate proposal, we have a few presenters here. We have Karen De La Rosa, who I believe is going to lead the presentation. We also have Adele from Finance, and I believe Ken just logged on from our water services team. So Karen, I'll pass it on to you.
Good afternoon again, Your Worship and Council.
Welcome back, Karen.
All right, so today I have the information report on the utility rate proposal. The City of Lloydminster provides water, wastewater, stormwater, and refuse collection, which is solid waste, services to customers connected to city utilities. These utilities are regulated by the utility bylaw, the refuse collection bylaw, and the stormwater bylaw as amended from time to time. Review and adjustment of the utility rates were completed in 2017 for solid waste and stormwater, and in 2018 for water. Since the adjustments, changes to the utility rates have not occurred. Over the years, operating expenses continue to rise with inflation, and capital budget requirements continue to increase with the need to upgrade existing aging facilities. The current 5-year capital plan for environmental services amounts to $29.8 million, inclusive of the cost for the new mechanical wastewater treatment facility. Administration has conducted a review of the city's current utility rates and developed a utility model based on the key principles of a self-sustaining and equitable utility. A self-sustaining utility means that the revenue collected from the utility is able to fund operating and capital expenses for the utility, including provisions for resiliency and unexpected costs. An equitable utility means that consumers of the service are paying for the utility, and consumers are today are not overburdened for the expenses far into the future. In line with the self-sustaining utility principle, the proposed utility rates are intended to cover the cost of providing the services, including the cost of future capital projects. And consistent with the principle of equitable utility, the proposed utility rates accounted for a proportionally higher rate for consumers who have higher demands for the system. That is, for example, the high water consumption. A comparison of the current and proposed rates are summarized in tables 1, 2, and 3 on the agenda. Residential utility bills pay $3.94 for a low water user and $5.31 for a high water user. So these are the customers who are consuming more than 23 cubic meters of water a month. The utility bill of an average household is projected to increase by $4.87. The average commercial user is projected to see an increase of $8.02 per month, and the utility bill of a high water user, so customers consuming more than 500 cubic meters per month, is projected to increase by $78.57. The proposed utility rates are being presented as an amendment to the bylaws that have been mentioned. Administration will bring forward a utility rate bylaw to a future council meeting. During the 2021 budget presentation, administration indicated a 3% increase in overall utility revenue. The proposed utility rates are projected to bridge the gap between the 2021 budget and actual revenues for 2021.
Questions or comments on this? Sorry, Councilor Diachak, go ahead.
Thanks, Karen. I guess I'm just looking at some of the increases, and some of them are relatively small and some are a little bit more, obviously, as you look at it. So is there a, when I looked at the numbers, I see 2021, are we giving any consideration to maybe perhaps a 3-year kind of schedule? Or so that we don't, or do we have to bring this back annually? I can't remember what our policy says on this, or bylaw.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilor Diachak. So we definitely are intending to bring forward a multi-year rate. However, we are starting with just a 2021 rate. We're still working through the utility model, which will help us help us develop a utility that is fully self-sustaining. So we are still working through that process, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done there. So we are just at this time just bring forward a 2021 rate so we can start moving forward with a self-sustaining utility.
Yeah, if I might, so that when could we expect to see that, in a year or 2 years, Karen? I just trying to wrap my head around it, because I think, you know, people want predictability and can look at it and say, yeah, I see my rates going up. But I mean, so I think, I can't remember what the first one was there, but it was a 1%. But if we look at landfill, it's 33%, and you know, what's $1.50, you know, 10% or whatever it is, just under 10% on our total is just that amount, pardon me. So I guess as I look at it, you know, we're not dealing in huge numbers, I guess, but in terms of increases, but being able to see it over a 3-year period, again, will just be, again, good from planning perspective from the city's standpoint, and anticipating its projects, but likewise from a, you know, consumer side of the equation as well.
For sure. Yeah, we are hoping to bring forward a multi-year utility rate by the end of the year.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, these new rates, you know, I can understand administration's perspective on where we're going and where we're kind of coming from and where we're trying to get to, because at the end of all of it, I understand we're going for a 3% increase, but you know, usage, as we've heard in the past, may not necessarily be higher on a per cubic meter kind of basis. But at the end of the day, the cost to operate and to fund the capital in these facilities is just going up every year. You know, the cost of chemical and the amount of chemical needed, you know, can increase and does not really make a difference in terms of amount of product, I guess, going out the door. What I do think is important that we acknowledge as a city council when we look at this is where we've come from in terms of overly being reliant on utility revenues to fund our operations and having to raise property taxes to deal with that. But, you know, that doesn't show the full picture in my eyes either, because we still have looming long-term debt that's going to be coming with a completed new wastewater treatment plant, where the cost of providing water services is going to go up. So if we're truly looking for a model that is self-sufficient, where utilities pay for utilities, growth pays for growth, and programs and services are paid by property taxes, then we need to make some adjustments on the utility side. And I can appreciate the fact that even our operating expenses are going up right now, with where we're at right now, as well as the long-term increases that will need to happen to be able to pay the long-term debt on the wastewater treatment facility. So I understand the direction that this is taking. Do I like it right now? No, but you know, at least with products like this, an individual consumer can make choices to limit the amount that they're paying. They can choose to use less water, find ways to do that, or, you know, make choices on how much they water their grass, things like that. So, you know, I can understand that this does provide some ability for individual choice on items like that. So yeah, I understand it at the end of the day. I don't love it, but it is what it is. And I think that we need to move forward if ever we want the possibility of being able to afford the long-term debt payments on the wastewater treatment plant, and not get into a situation where we are in dire straits and need to beg other levels of government for money when we need to replace one of our key pieces of infrastructure. So one question that I did have is the new bylaw changing the name from meter fee to distribution charge? Because that's something that is incredibly important to me, because I know that the meter fee wording doesn't really mean anything. Whereas it's probably more accurately described as a meter charge, or as a distribution fee. And I've heard lots of complaints where an individual would feel like, well, after paying that for 10 years, I'm sure I've paid for this meter by now. So anyway, any feedback on that?
I would defer that question to Ken Urban.
Thank you, Councillor Thorson. Hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can, Ken. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we took that name in consideration. We understand that there's a lot of confusion between this fixed fee and the meter fee. But I think for this bylaw, we're going to keep the name the same. But when we come forward with the new changes, we're going to have that name changed as well.
I hear. Thank you, Ken, for that. I think the councillor has a rebuttal. Councillor Thorson.
I am not I'm not able to make decisions at a meeting like this, but that bylaw may be amended when it's going for approval. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Councillor Thorson. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just one question, and I've written it down here, but it was high water users. So who would those individuals be, or are we talking hotels, or what are some examples of that group?
Can we go back to that slide or that comment? Because there's high water users for the residential and commercial.
Okay, yeah, because I see that, right just at on the second page, next page. Oh, maybe not. It's it's the last page. Pardon me. Here we go. Yeah, second paragraph. There we go.
Okay, so that's 500 cubes. That can be your larger hotels. It could include a couple of schools. I don't have the real breakdown on that part, but it would be your definitely heavier commercial users for sure.
Okay, no, that's good. When I saw that, I envisioned hotels and laundry and that kind of piece, right? But yeah, schools, the toilets are being flushed pretty regularly.
Councillor Marin.
So I'm just going to plant a seed here because this was a discussion that we had in a recent course that I was attending, and it was really specific to utility rates that were for water. And many communities across Alberta are having the same discussion in terms of the operating costs continue to rise, and the maintenance fees are piling up. So they're having to increase utility bill rates. And so this is a good approach, and similar to what many other municipalities are doing. But one thing that some of the municipalities are doing is also some education around how to reduce your water use. And so that might be something for us to consider is, how do we promote the use of rain barrels and other initiatives that can reduce residential or commercial usage of water.
Thanks for your comment on that, Councilor Marin. Actually, our team is looking at putting additional information on our website for water conservation measures. And we'll be discussing, stuff like tips on how to check your toilet for leaks. Also for watering lawns, we're going to put some strong recommendations of, when you should water your lawn and the times of day, especially not to water on, say, a windy days. So tips like that will really help people cut back on their water usage, especially the customers that have timer irrigations. Typically, they will go on every second or third night, regardless if it's rained an inch of rain or not. So we kind of know some of those customers, and we'll be discussing that with them as well, that, hey, you don't necessarily need to water your lawn when it's rained the night before. So we will be putting additional information on our website to help let people find ways of cutting back water without actually impacting, the look of their lawn or their actual everyday usage.
Thank you for that, Ken. Good question, Councillor. Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Your Worship. I feel like I said this one other time for another agenda item, but I'm always a fan of comparables to other municipalities, and I appreciate the piece that you do have in there, and I need some clarity on that piece. But while I'm at it, I'll just state that I'm I'd be interested to know how we compare when it comes to other things like garbage collection rates and And I know we don't really, we're maybe a bit unique when it comes to stormwater levy, and it's not, it's separate, not included in maybe like some of the other municipalities. So, I'm just, because I know we can, we have a lot of upcoming capital expense, and we have a big capital expense currently when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant and the interest that goes along with that, and there's a lot of demand for revenue, and so just trying to balance that and figure out what's appropriate, and are we behind? When we talk about like taxes used to be in Lloyd, or are we falling behind and letting things lag? But first off, that wastewater services slide that's in there, you have is that what all it consists of in that slide? You have fixed per month and variable per cubic meter, and is that strictly water then, or what does the fixed rate refer to? Is that a bit of both?
Okay, so the fixed fee, that's based on your meter size?
No, not that slide. Next slide, please. Yeah.
Okay, so this is that comparative rate analysis that you were looking for. So we took 4 cities in Alberta and 4 in Saskatchewan, and all those cities all have the fixed fee and the variable fees as Lloydminster. And you can see the average down below there of the fixed fee is about $47.28. And Lloydminster is well under that at $19.37 for the proposed rate for 2021. The variable rate between all those cities is averaging $3.26, and right now Lloydminster is proposing that we move up our residential rate up to the $3.67 per cubic meter.
Yeah, so we're about par when it comes to our cubic rate. And fixed, does that include, so then that includes everything? That would, in our case, that would be the meter fee and wastewater and everything under that fee, but doesn't include garbage roadside collection, correct? Or does it?
So this will be the water and wastewater fee. There'll be another separate rates for the garbage collection, and your stormwater is a different fee as well.
Right. And I know it's hard to compare apples to apples, but yeah, I'd be interested to, how do we compare with our garbage collection rate with other municipalities? I think this slide is very informative, knowing that we're the lowest out of all the 8 that you've chosen there. We are substantially lower than most of them, and it's good information, I think.
If I can just add to that, Councillor Whiting, I would just add caution when we're comparing these fees across the board, just because the services might be different, and also the what we are providing for services might be different, and also what these municipalities are, I guess, are recovering for costs, right? So, for example, garbage collection services might be a little bit different for Lloydminster and, say, City of Saskatoon, who doesn't have organics collection, or a city that doesn't own their own landfill. So we just need to be very cognizant of that when we are comparing rates across the board.
Any other questions or comments?
Your worship, the only thing I would add to the wastewater side is it's not only the cost of the debenture that's going to go up, we're anticipating an operational cost of the plant as well, that which, that's not finalized yet, but there is an anticipated operational once, that plant is operational. We'll have to look at it in a couple of years as well. So that's all taken into account. I heard debenture a few times, and I just want to make sure that we expect the operational of that building to go up as well.
Thank you, City Manager. Certainly a change of technology to go from something as we currently have the lagoon system to a fully mechanical wastewater treatment plant will incur some costs that we are going to have to bear as taxpayers. meeting regulations does not come cheap, as we found out. Is there any other questions regarding the utility rate proposal presented by administration? Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, this is just more of a comment. If the meter fee name is actually a real issue that's going to provide problems, then obviously, we'll address it when the big one comes. But I again, don't love it. Distribution charge is better. But if it's going to cause issues with billing or something like that, where we just don't want to tackle that right now, I will understand. But if it's not, you should change it.
I just want to say on that, actually, I'm looking at the current bylaw. It doesn't actually say meter fee, but looking at your utility bill that you receive, it does say meter on it. So that could be a quick fix for us to just change it on the bill. But in the actual bylaw, it actually does say fixed monthly fee, not meter fee.
We'll leave that one with administration to come back with from that perspective. Any other questions from council? I think that I appreciate administration bringing this forward, because I think that no matter how, and it's been noted several times, none of us like an increase in cost, but a cost that is no question about it. From, again, hey, bringing it up as the carbon tax, the energy that's required to pump water from the North Saskatchewan River to our city does not come cheap. City Council has had a chance to see some of that equipment there. The size of those electric pumps and the energy draw that we have, we consume energy, and that energy is costing more money. We know that chemicals are challenged with the pricing. We continuously working through our procurement team, ensuring that we get the best possible pricing. But again, each and every item that I can imagine our city has been acquiring is not getting any cheaper. And this is one of the challenges that it has been a couple of years since, and I do appreciate where administration wants to take us, that they would like to see it a little more long-term. And I would appreciate that too, as you mentioned, Councilor Diachuk, that we may need to look at a 1 year now, and as the year progresses, our administration will have a better idea of what they can expect over potentially 2 or 3 years. And I think that's if we could send a message back to administration, if that's reasonable in the next rate proposal, that we look at it 2 or 3 years. So it gives taxpayers and residents just a little bit more opportunity to see where things are going and have those discussions with council if they so wish, and so we can explain exactly what's going on. No further discussion on this item. Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you very much, Ken and Adele, for working this through and bringing this forward. We'll look forward to seeing it come to City Council meeting in the future.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council.
You're very welcome. Moving on to 6.2, City Manager, the amendment to the Transportation Systems Bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship, for 6.2 and 6.3, the amendment to Transportation Systems Bylaw and the Traffic Bylaw, and the Dangerous Goods Route and the traffic route. I will ask James Rogers to present.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, James. Welcome, and please carry on.
Fantastic. So before you is the text amendment to the Transportation Systems Bylaw number 021995, associated with the Dangerous Goods Route, or DGR, and the truck route. So the topic is to provide the committee with information pertaining to a preliminary amendment to the Transportation System Bylaw number 021995, respecting the update to the City of Lloydminster's transportation system. In 2015, ISL Engineering and Land Services created a transportation master plan for the City of Lloydminster. In the 2015 Transportation Master Plan, a need was identified for the city to create and adopt a Dangerous Goods Route, or DGR, and update the truck routes. As laid out in the city's traffic bylaw number 092018, the city currently has both DGR and truck routes. However, the current DGR only consists of 44th Street and 50th Avenue, or Highway 16 and Highway 17 respectively. Adopted dangerous goods routes and updated truck routes will allow the city to mitigate the risks involved with the transportation of hazardous materials and products within the city's limits. With one of the city's main economic sectors being based on natural resources, including other sectors such as agriculture, heavy oil and gas, and manufacturing. The economic impacts of a selected route were to be considered along with the transportation risks. Also of consideration was the inherent difficulties with the city being bisected by both Highway 16 and Highway 17 in both the north, south, and east-west directions. Stemming from the 2015 Transportation Master Plan recommendations, administration sought submissions from qualified vendors interested in providing engineering support as a consulting engineer for the review of the existing information and development of a DGR and updated truck routes within the city. The development and updating of the DGR and the truck routes included studying the current traffic conditions and existing transportation master plans, traffic bylaw review, engaging stakeholders in the public, and creating multiple viable options for DGR and truck routes within the city. This project also included neighboring municipality review of their bylaws and dangerous goods route and truck routes as well. The project was awarded to ISL on June 21st, 2019. Upon completion of the above DGR and truck routes establishment project, ISL recommended text amendments to the transportation system bylaw to ensure consistency between the recommended routes and proposed signage, the traffic bylaw 092018, and the current transportation system within the city. In conjunction with minor clerical and formatting adjustments, the changes to the transportation system bylaw were limited to Section 4, transportation system, in particular appendices B, C, and D, whereby updated overall network and DGR and truck routes drawings were inserted, as well as updated physical descriptions. As part of the DGR and truck road establishment process, 2 stakeholder engagement sessions were held. The first was an online engagement session and was held between October 10th, 2019 and October 22nd, 2019, with the second being a public open house on December 3rd, 2019. With that, I'll turn it over to Mayor and Council for any questions or comments you may have about the text amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Questions or comments? So really, James, this is to clean up the bylaw with the proposed changes. Is that a good summary of where we're headed?
Yes, thank you for your question, Mary. So that is correct. So the main changes will be coming in the next item, the amendments to the traffic bylaw. However, it was recommended by ISL to also update the transportation systems bylaw to ensure we had complete consistency between the 2 documents, as they both reference dangerous goods routes and truck routes, as they have seen that become a loophole in the event of an enforcement issue where one says it and the other doesn't. So this is just to boost the amendments to the traffic bylaw.
Excellent. Housekeeping matter more than anything. Councillor Diachuk.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for this, James. I'm glad to see this is sort of reaching this point. I know back in, I think 2010 or 2014, whenever we got elected, and I got elected in that first term, you know, this is one of the higher priorities. Certainly we heard from the community members, so I'm glad to see this. The only question I have with this document is that I know in the next document in your definition, you know, you have a definition for dangerous goods, and it's a pretty straightforward one. Is there a reason why it's not in this one as well?
That's a great question, Councillor. Thank you for that. I will have to take that back and review what definitions are in the transportation system and determine why it may have been left out.
Yeah, I mean, it says transportation systems, and I get it, but if you're, you know, I guess as I heard you speak, and all of these pieces need to be put together. I mean, if it doesn't have to be there, that's fine, I guess. But when I was looking through there, I didn't see it under the definition Schedule A under this one. It's in the next document, obviously.
Great comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments for James? 6.2. James, once you have that bit of information that Councillor Diachuk is seeking, is this basically headed to City Council in the very near future?
Yes, I believe the transportation systems bylaw will be able to come to council for first reading or initiation of the process. The next one, the traffic bylaw, will require a public hearing to be completed. So we may hold back the transportation systems bylaw just to coincide with those timelines, as well as the procurement of the signage, which engineering services is currently working on.
Okay. How close are we, whereabouts are we in that process for the procurement, if I can ask you?
So the final procurement documents have come across my desk and will be issued this week to secure the services of a signed supplier and a installation contractor.
Okay. So we're into the second quarter, and is the target to hopefully complete in the second quarter, or are we going to be pushed into the third quarter by the looks of things?
We are looking to complete this within the second quarter.
Terrific. Terrific. Again, as Councillor Diachuk raised, this has been an issue raised by many individuals in the community, with myself included. And I think that there's several pieces to this to ensure that the communication reaches the trucking industry, because at the end of the day, those are the folks that we need to get the message to. But I think that communications will play a huge role, as well as the city, the communications team at the city, as well as our peace officers through the bylaw. And I think it'll be an educational process. And as soon as we can start that process, that'll be terrific. Any further questions or comments? Well, James, thank you for that report, but we might as well move right into 6.3, because that I believe they tie hand to hand to this past report.
Okay. Before you is the text amendment to the traffic bylaw number 092018, DGR and truck route. The topic is to provide the committee with information pertaining to a preliminary amendment to the traffic bylaw number 092018, respecting the establishment of a dangerous goods route and updating the truck routes. The background section is a duplicate copy from the transportation systems bylaw presentation. So if it's all right with Mayor and Council, I will skip to the actual changes we proposed.
Please do, James.
Okay. So upon completion of the DGR and truck route establishment project, ISL recommended text amendments to the transportation systems bylaw to ensure consistency between the recommended routes and proposed signage, the traffic bylaw, and the current transportation system within the city. In conjunction with minor clerical and formatting adjustments, the changes to the traffic bylaw were limited to the following two areas, including amendments due to the adoption of the DGR and the updating of the truck routes, as well as two other general amendments as identified below. The DGR and truck route amendments included amendment to section 13, weight and size limits, by removing the references to the DGR and truck routes, creation of section 14, truck routes, and an amended appendix D, creation of section 15, dangerous goods roads, and amended appendix E, amendment to the appendix A definitions to help clarify and draw some consistency among other municipalities, as well as within our own document. And then general amendments, amendments to sections 8.14 through to section 8.16 regarding the parking of trailers, and addition of implementing speed limits of 15 kilometers per hour in parking lots that are owned by the city of Lloydminster. So the main driver for the amendments were due to the implementation or the adoption of a dangerous goods route and the updating of our truck routes. But while we were in the document, we also saw it fit to update these other sections as well. The traffic bylaw was, as part of the DGR and truck route establishment project process, two stakeholder engagement sessions were held as well. The first was an all-night engagement session, and it was held between October 10th, 2019 and October 22nd, 2019, with the second being at a public open house on December 3rd, 2019. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mayor and Council for any questions you may have.
Thank you, James. Questions or comments from Council? Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the list of amendments there for clarity purposes, and maybe just I don't know if this is something that all of council would like to see, or maybe it's just myself. And sometimes it fits in these revisions, and sometimes it doesn't. But I often wish I could just see the revisions in red and not have to look back and forth to make sure I'm not missing anything. In this situation, you do have them listed, and I think they're pretty straightforward right from there. I'm just wondering if sometimes it'd be nice to see them right in the new bylaw and where they fit in without having to go search for them, but that could be just myself. I think everything is pretty straightforward. I just wanted to bring that up. I was trying to read through this and see if there was anything that noted those vehicles or trucks that stop on our main corridor and unload their goods, if that's reflected in here, and just more of a specific thing than a general thing. That's for another time, but that's all I had.
Thank you.
Councillor Thorson, my apologies.
It's all right. Thank you, Your Worship. So just as far as the parking of the trailer, the unhitched, what did that change from? Because was there not I thought there was a time period where there was an acceptable time period that was there. Maybe I'm thinking of a different bylaw.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Thorson. I will have to defer your question to Glenn Alford on that one.
Thank you, James. Councillor Thorson, thank you for the question. There is some basically cleanup in this section. We've always, in the 2018 bylaw, unhitched trailers were allowed to be parked for 48 hours, as they are in this one. The main one, when we did the amendment in the 2018 bylaw, we inadvertently deleted the commercial trailers section. So large trucks dollying off and that kind of thing was happening and causing some damage to infrastructure. So we've reintroduced no parking of unhitched trailers, which covers our commercial and outside of residential. And then with the sections below it, 8.15 and 8.16, utility and residential can be parked in residential unhitched, as well as recreational, as long as the tires are chalked and the slides are not extended. But it's the same amount of time as we had before, 48 hours.
Right. I really should have looked at the one following 8.15, the words exactly after the one I was looking at. So my apologies. It's right there. Yeah, I knew that there was a time limit for some of them, but it makes sense that on the commercial side that, there'd be no period of time, because you don't want anything, especially a dangerous goods, just kind of sitting there untamed, unmanned, unsupervised, something like that. So thank you.
Any other questions, council? James, will this bring our bylaw into alignment, more or less, to say to most communities in Saskatchewan, Alberta, especially cities such as our size and larger?
With respect to the dangerous goods route and the truck routes, yes, I believe it will. With respect to the rest of the document, I would have to defer that back to Glenn as well with respect to the enforcement side of it.
Thanks for that. Glenn, can you comment, please? Oh, you're muted, Glenn.
The sections with respect to unhitched trailers, there is a wide variety in both Alberta and Saskatchewan as far as what is permitted. I did check with the insurance company. The concern with having an unhitched trailer is generally the power unit is what has liability insurance. So a towed vehicle or a towed trailer has or receives liability insurance from the power unit that is towing it. And in this case, there's many different companies that provide different coverage. So some people may have no liability but have fire and theft. Others have specifically gotten liability insurance, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some only allow you to park trailers on the property and not allowing them to be left on the street, and others or you're allowed to park on the street, and it's the same as parking a car. You have to move it within 3 days. But it is quite a mixed bag.
Thank you. Councillor Torreson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just one other general question for Glenn, now that we've got him here. Is just, I remember when we approved this last time around, we had maybe made some updates to the fees as far as engine retarder brakes, or Jake brakes as they're commonly known. Do we do a lot of enforcement of things like that? Because it's one of those things where if you live on 75th Ave backing on there, or 12th, I think you still hear them a lot. And then just with the move of this to this dangerous goods route, I think for those neighborhoods that are backing onto those main roads, you'll be still hearing a lot more of them. I'm just wondering if you had any comment on it. Or not so much you, that'd be more Doug.
We do some enforcement. The majority of our complaints are initiated from the hotels along Highway 16 late at night if trucks are coming through and use the Jake brakes or engine retarder brakes. There has been some down in the south end as well along that corridor. However, that truck route is a timed truck route as well, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And hopefully that will alleviate some of the concern as well. But we do respond to it. I believe we laid 3 charges last year with respect to the engine retarder brakes in a residential area.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Marin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Torreson, for bringing that up, because just last week I had a community member who backs onto 25th Street say, when are they going to start enforcing that? And so he's experiencing that kind of later in the evening, probably after that 10 p.m. Timeline. And so just a note for you, Glenn, and for your team, that there's quite a number of people who have brought that up in the last while, and this neighbor will be probably contacting you as well. So Jake brakes continue to be a problem here.
Thank you, Councillor. And I would encourage anybody that is experiencing those issues to contact the public safety team so that we can take a look at that for them.
I think that as we move forward with the dangerous goods route and the truck route, this will be an excellent time to as well continue to communicate that very issue with the trucking industry, because it is a standard usually on the highway, but more and more communities are asking, are prohibiting, or in some cases recommending not to use, but in our case it is prohibited. And I think that's a message that needs to continue to be recirculated back to the industry, and certainly help our local community, trucking community, share that with the travel community that comes through, because 16 Highway is a corridor we know to Edmonton, on to Fort Mac, and we see a lot of we've seen a lot in the past, certainly heavy equipment move through, and it's one of the challenges that occasionally I hear about, our yellow lights aren't long enough, and this and that, so that the use of the retardant brakes are some of the preferred methods that the truck drivers have. But hopefully with the timing of James's lights working better all the time, that that will come to an end. But in the same token, it's I think a message that we just need to reinforce, both as we move forward once this bylaw moves forward, and the communication to the community again. Any other comments or questions? Last call. Thank you very much, James and Glenn, for joining us, and thank you for the presentation, James, and the answers from both of you on regarding this proposed amendments to the bylaw that we'll look forward to seeing come forward.
Thank you, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. That moves us to number 7 on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the inquiries from the media. Our communications team.
Perfect. We got it on the right camera. Thank you, Your Worship. And today we have interview requests for yourself, Mayor Albers.
Thank you very much. And I will ask for a motion to take a recess. Councillor Dodchak, motion to second.
Motion, yep, motion to recess.
And I got Councillor Magnan for a seconder. Thank you. And any further discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Thank you, Council.
Carried. We are in recess. Thank you very much, everyone.
Are we on a new Zoom link or are we on this same Zoom link?
I believe we'll be back into, it should be a team.
We'll be in a team.